good to be back. I am an AIDS survivor. World AIDS Day is a time that we mourn those we've lost. We celebrate the lives of those who survived. We give hope to those who still struggle, and we realize that there's still so much more to do. My story is sort of twofold, and a lot of people have heard it. The first part of my story is the struggle I spent for many years between the ex-gay and the gay struggle. And that entails most of the fun stuff everybody's already heard about. Drinking, partying with famous people, a few trips to jail, nothing serious, split personality, sexcapades. But all of this is what eventually led to my contracting AIDS, which is the second half of my story. Usually the first half gets the most attention, and I spend less time on this part, but this time, this is the focus. Quick Reader's Digest summary of the past. During my childhood through my teens, my life revolved around the church primarily. It's where I was very much involved. It was like my second family, and in school. I realized I was gay when I entered college, even though I had known I was different for years. I just didn't know why. When I first moved to New York City in the early 80s, it was with someone I thought I was in love with, my first true love, the thing I always dreamed of, and ended up getting completely screwed over. He basically just needed an apartment. Well, it was my first time and I was completely and totally devastated. So my escape through friends ended up in the sexual underground of New York City. And I became a sex addict, a lover of Coke, the drug. Dr. Pepper is my soda addiction. And I lived my entire life for a number of years focusing on sex, 24 hours a day. That was it. I had an incessant need to be accepted, to be liked, to be affirmed, and that fulfilled that need. And this period was in the midst of the spread of AIDS. I then realized the church at large also condemned who I was, and then my conflict really began. I continued to meet people who either said I was going to hell or you could be cured. The last thing I wanted was to be an embarrassment to my family, my friends, and God. So for years I fought who I was, tried to be free from the sin that I was living in. Through constant prayer, I prayed every day, numerous times, every day, asking God to remove this evil from within me. I went through countless sessions of having demons cast out by pastors, some well-known, it didn't work for them either, church leaders, prayer groups, evangelists, members of the Rockettes prayer group, which was the most fun. I went through an actual exorcism. I was involved in 2 ex-gay ministries. One evangelist prophesied that I was to leave the entertainment industry because it was bad for me to be around so many homosexuals. And it was at a point where I was starting to finally make progress in the industry. Then it was prophesied that I should go to Bible school. So I was off to Tulsa, Oklahoma to go to Bible school. There I heard about an ex-gay ministry. I met with them. I told them God had convicted me that homosexuality was wrong, and immediately became their prize poster boy, a Rhema Bible School student who was gay and cured. But I wasn't. I was a split personality, and I was living one life fighting the instincts of another. I ended up graduating, moving back to New York City to work with another ex-gay ministry. I was on the board of that ministry. We spoke at churches and at different events all over the region, Northeast, explaining that you had to give up homosexuality or you would spend an eternity in hell. During my Bible school time, I had met and became extremely close friends with this girl I worked with, and we had kept in touch. The ministry then convinced me that she was my God-chosen mate, and we ended up getting married because that was the final step in the cure. Well, in the beginning of my marriage, I accepted a job working for a well-respected doctor at NYU Medical Center Dr. Friedman King. I managed his dermatology practice as well as becoming his personal assistant managing his life. He was also a world-renowned expert on Kaposi's sarcoma. And he was the one who made the connection between KS and the AIDS victims. He wrote a book on KS, for which I was one of the editors, and he has also mentioned it as the band played on. He also oversaw a laboratory doing AIDS research, along with the CDC and other scientists with Anthony Fauci and Dr. Robert Gallo, who discovered AIDS. He began treating patients for KS in our dermatology office. We conducted in our office the first experimental drug treatment trial for AZT, and I supervised the patients. For the first couple of years, we lost at least one patient, usually more, every week or two. I had become friends with many of the patients, and I watched them wither away to walking skeletons within weeks as they headed towards quick death. And I wondered over and over how I had avoided this fate, knowing that for years I'd engaged in multiple times the amount of sexual activity as most of them. And it started eating away at me. I started drinking, I started using coke again, and I was losing control of the homosexual urges that I had bottled down within me. I was the director of music and worship arts and the choir and the worship team at one of the largest non-denominational churches in New York City. I ministered with Ed Cole, an international evangelist for men, and I ministered with Exodus, the International Coalition of Ex-Gay Ministries. This kept me distracted, and it kept me in check for a long time. But eventually, the conflict came to a head. I ended up divorced, and the church dismissed me. Interestingly, 4 other couples that my wife and I had encouraged during our time in the ministry to get married so they could be healed also ended up in divorce. Seems that it wasn't the last step in being cured. So I gave up. I gave up fighting, but I could never escape the eventuality that I was going to go to hell for a sin that I couldn't control or get rid of. I delved further into the party scene. I went through 3 high-profile corporate $60,000+ a year jobs that I lost each time due to my behavior and its effect on my job. Then one day I noticed a lesion on the side of my right knee. Having worked on the definitive book on KS lesions and seen patients personally riddled with a KS, I knew immediately, and I knew my fate was sealed. And I went to one of the colleagues of the doctor that I worked with and that we had worked with. He had worked with our office. He confirmed the diagnosis, put me on medications. Their effectiveness at that time was still an unknown. It was sort of hit and miss. And after a while, I became emotionally spent. I was tired of fighting the homosexuality within, wondering why God wouldn't take it away after everything I'd done to get rid of it, dealing with whether AIDS was my punishment for something God refused to deliver me from, and fighting the return of my addictions. And I finally gave up on myself, on God, on everything. And I was just tired. I quit taking my medications. I lost my latest job again. I drank more. And after losing that last job for 6 months, I rarely left my apartment. I spent most of my time drinking, ordering and coke delivered, scheduling online hookups all day at my place, just waiting for the inevitable. In the last month of that 6 months, I felt that I was nearing the end, and I was fine with it. I was ready. I was just ready to end it all. And then one evening, I had the sense that I wouldn't last through the night. So I called up a friend, asked if they could come and stay over. To be truthful, I wasn't afraid to die alone, but I didn't want to be found days or weeks later being eaten by my cats. So the next morning, which was the second week of July 2003, I woke up and I could barely breathe. My friend put me in a cab, rushed me to the hospital, where I was immediately put on oxygen. And after what seemed like forever, the doctor made an appearance and told me I had PCP pneumonia, which was the primary killer of those with AIDS at that time, and that my lungs were barely operable and I would have to be intubated, and that I would not come out of it alive. He informed me to contact my family. I had a friend there. I signed over power of attorney with instructions to contact my family so they could come say goodbye, remove the life support, and under no circumstances resuscitate. And a group of friends came by the next day to be with me before I was intubated. And the last thing I remember is them standing at the end of the bed, a couple of them, tears in their eyes, trying not to let me see. Then I received the anesthesia, and I felt really good. And then the tube came towards me as they began to insert it into my mouth, and then there was a blackout. Suddenly, I am leaving my apartment to go to the deli. I'm barely able to walk using a cane. Then I'm in a cave with scientists who I sense are family. Then I'm in a bare room, in a bed, unable to get up, small table to the side, no windows, no doors, just a TV monitor in the corner where I could see my family and friends walking up a stairway. Then I'm in the deli again, and then there's blackness. Oh, I'm walking to the deli, and then there's blackness. Then I wake up in the dark under a bridge, hands and legs bound, this shadowy man with a hood over his face, holding a huge knife that he just kept sharpening. Then he looks at me and smiles, with a mouthful of razor-sharp pointed teeth. Then I'm back in the cave, discussing the disappointing progress of a cure. I'm dying quickly and aging rapidly. Then I'm back in that room, and up in the corner is this evil little devil head, like at the top of the wall in front of me, and it's laughing, just the mouth is moving. And it's like a Pac-Man figure or something. And it moves across the wall, then it goes down and moves across the wall, then it goes down and moves across the wall, all the way to the bottom, laughing, this insidious, sinister laugh the entire time. Suddenly there's a visitor sitting in a chair next to my bed, telling me how much he loves me. He's gorgeous. How I should come spend the rest of my life with him. Doesn't feel right. He disappears. Each of these three scenarios continue over and over and over. The first scenario gets to a certain point, which skips to the second scenario, picking up where it left off and going to another point. Then that would skip to the third scenario, picking up where that had left off and get to the next point. It was an endless cycle. Each nightmarish scenario moving towards my death. Being tortured and cannibalized in the first, slowly dying and aging rapidly in the second, comfortably dying while watching family and friends endlessly climb stairs on the monitor, but never, ever arriving, just waiting. Then there's a second man who appears alternately in the third scenario in that room. I can't really make him out, but he just sits quietly with me, never speaking, holding my hand, and when he's there, I feel no pain. I'm convinced I'm in hell. I'm convinced that this was my punishment, to spend eternity living out these alternate, torturous realities, each one leading to my death, but never getting there. Forced to spend eternity, trapped in the nightmares in my mind, in a lifeless body, my soul forever tormented, but never released. Then I reach the empty room scenario again, with the silent man. He suddenly gets up to leave, and he opens a door, one which was never there before. And this brilliant, bright, shining light explodes into the room. There are no more walls, and it engulfs me, and I feel like I'm floating in the light, and I see him, the quiet one, bathed in light within the light. And he's looking at me with his arms open wide. And for the first time in my life, I felt total peace, pure love, enveloping me like nothing I had ever experienced. I wanted that. It's what I had thirst for always, and I was ready. And then he spoke. My son, it is not your time, but it's your choice. Immediately my eyes opened. I'm surrounded by equipment, nurses in a hospital room. I see my parents and my youngest sister and my friend at the end of the bed talking to the doctor. It seems, as I found out later, I had been in a coma for almost 6 weeks and had actually died and been revived once. And they had finally decided to remove the tube and unplug me from life support. The doctor told him it would be very quick, as my body had basically shut down. And they had just gotten off the phone with my siblings in Memphis, and they were all making plans to meet in North Carolina the next day for my funeral and burial. And then suddenly my mother looks over at me and sees my eyes open. She sort of gasps. Everyone's looking over at me. And then Mom and Dad are crying. My first thought was, really? You have given me the chance to escape this life, but you make me look at this first. I was ready to go until seeing my parents cry, and the guilt sunk in. How could I do this to them? I wanted to go into that light, but there was this immense love I was feeling from my parents and my family at that moment. And I just looked at them, and they came around the bed and they grabbed my hands. And my friend came over and said, do you want the tube removed? And I was sitting there thinking, decision, now. I need more time. And then I heard Dean blink twice for yes, once for no. And I looked up at the faces of my parents and my sister, and I saw this joy in my mom's eyes. And I realized it was decision time. And I just looked, and then I thought, okay, God, I can't leave them like this. This is so unfair. I will give it another shot. If you please promise to make it a little easier this time. Well, I blinked twice. A short time later, they removed the tube. Of course, they had no idea what I had just experienced, so they stood there holding my hands, and I guess this was what people do when someone's dying. They intently stare at you, as if they're waiting so they can all see that last breath. It was a little uncomfortable. After a few hours, nothing had happened. I was still alive. The doctor, and they were monitoring everything. Finally, the doctor said, he said, I have no idea what's happening. My mom looked right at me and she said, I know what's happening. My parents were at the hospital every day for a month, staying at my apartment with my sister until she had to go home. I weighed about 90 pounds. I was on morphine, and because I had this huge head sore from being in the coma right at the base of my spine. And I couldn't move a single muscle in my body. I couldn't talk. The tough part of the whole thing was laying there, realizing I had never told anyone, not a family, not friends, that I had AIDS. When people had pressed me about looking not so good or my behavior, I privately tell them that I had cancer, but I don't want to talk about it. I was afraid of losing everybody in my life if they found out I had AIDS, because at that time, everyone was afraid of it. They were afraid of touching you. They were afraid of breathing the air you breathed in. There was a fear surrounded it, and it was a fear that I didn't want to experience. There were questions to answer. Fortunately, I couldn't talk. One time, it didn't matter. But the time came a few weeks later as I got my voice back, when my mom said, why didn't you tell us? And I explained that I didn't want to disappoint them again. That I didn't want them to hate me or to be afraid of me and be afraid of my disease. And Mom just looked at me and said, you could have told us. We love you. We wouldn't have been happy about it, but we're still your parents. Hallmark moment, tears, Kleenex. Eventually, The doctors explained that I'd probably never be able to breathe on my own again and would have to be on oxygen for the rest of my life. I might regain some mobility, but probably never walk, and would always be on multiple medications throughout the day. They recommended I be transferred to a rehabilitation facility to live out however long I might live, because the medications were still not foolproof. Mom and Dad returned home, and I was transferred to Goldwater Hospital on the south end of Roosevelt Island in the East River, directly across from Manhattan. It was sort of where everybody who didn't have money was sent. And I remember first arriving and initially put in a room by myself, and I had plenty of time to contemplate everything that had just transpired, and I was not happy. I still weighed 90 pounds. I looked like a bedridden skeleton. I could only move my arms a little by this point. I had no strength. I basically could only move, the only other movement I could do was turning my head side to side. I was hooked up to an oxygen machine. I was still on morphine. I was fed by a tube. And I had my diapers, adult diapers, changed by nurses. The most humiliating moment of my life. Most of my friends had moved away, and I lost contacts with others. A few made occasional visits, but I was mostly alone, which is exactly what I envisioned would happen if people found out. I would look out the window for hours that faced the bridge that carried hundreds of people and cars back and forth from Astoria to Manhattan, and that was the bridge I used to cross every single day. And I lay there thinking, and now I'm in bed for the rest of my life, looking at everyone else living theirs in a poor people's hospital. I had nothing. I had no money. My parents had given everything I had away, or thrown it away because they thought I was dying. I didn't even have a TV, and if you know me, that was a major catastrophe. After a few days in that room, the pressure was building up, and I just started yelling at God, what the hell is going on? I mean, you give me a second chance as an invalid stuck in a downtrodden rehab facility for the rest of my life. I get to live, but I get to be punished all my life at the same time. I could have crossed over and missed all this. What the hell? And I was angry. I was so angry. And I had no idea how to deal with it. I had no one to talk to. I had no one to listen to me. A few days later, I was moved into a permanent room with 3 other inmates who told me that they had all been there for 15 to 20 years, although 2 guys had passed away and 2 were new. And they spoke very casually about it. They had accepted it, and they were resigned to it. And reality sunk in. I was going to be there for a while. Fortunately, the nurses loved me, of course. And I had a window bed. I spent hours just looking out the window, noticing the intricate design of trees and limbs and branches and leaves until they fell, watching the seagulls and pigeons fly, the intricate patterns, landing on my ledge of my window and just studying them, and realizing each individual pigeon is different, totally different designs. Finally, some friends of mine came to visit and brought me a portable TV. Ellen became my best friend, and most surprisingly, I came to love baseball, a sport. Confined to bed changes you, and it gives you a lot of time to think. And I still spend a lot of time thinking about why I'm here. Why did I agree to a second chance, which seemed to be a big dud? What was ahead? A lifetime as a virtual invalid? It's not exactly what I expected after the big bright light. Here's your second chance type reveal. About a month later, one night I woke up and noticed my oxygen mask had fallen off, and in a panic. It was in the dark, and I was looking for it, trying not to wake everybody else up. And the guy across from me who rarely slept, so it's like, he said, what's wrong? I said, my mask fell off. I can't find my mask. He goes, man, you're breathing. So I turned around, looked at him, I said, what? He goes, you have to breathe in, man. And he had run for the nurse who came in, looked at me. Dean Hiatt, what are you doing without your mask? The guy yelled, he's breathing. He got the He used it a lot. He's breathing on his own. And I was sitting there, and I was trying to let it soak in. She lets out, holy Jesus, runs out of the room. Moments later, she comes back with a couple of other nurses. They call a doctor on duty who comes into the room, and he declares that yes, he seems to be breathing on his own, but until tests could be done, he put me back on the oxygen. The nurse, who was a very funny Jamaican lady and very religious, sternly religious, and let you know it, was running up and down the hall telling everybody, it's a miracle, praise God, there's a miracle happening. I went back to sleep. And I woke up the next morning. My doctor arrived much earlier than she normally does. In fact, she was off that day, but they had called her. And she rushed into the hospital. She came in with a couple of doctors. They were looking, poking, prodding. Then they wheeled me into the hospital area. And I was examined and x-rays were taken. And then I was wheeled back to my room. And later the doctor returned and pulled up a chair. She sat next to my bed, and she happened to be a Muslim woman, and she wore that hijab, which made her look very serious and extremely intimidating. We were all afraid of her. She leaned over, and she said, Mr. Hiatt, do you believe in God? And I said, yes. She said, that's good, because that's the only explanation I have for what's happened. Your lungs have almost completely cleared up and they're functioning again. And I sat there and I was stunned. And then she leaned back over and she goes, you've been given a second chance, Mr. Hiatt. Don't screw it up this time. She left and I laid in bed for a few days and I contemplated what was going on, waiting to see if it was actually going to last. And finally I called my family and met this after it seemed to be continuing. Mom just said, well, I'm not surprised. In the next few weeks, I began putting on weight. I was in bed asleep and I heard the voice, that voice I heard the first time. That voice that offered me my second chance. I heard it loud and clear. It's almost shouting, get up and walk. And I laid there, wanted to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Then I heard the voice again, louder, get up and walk. And I sat up and I looked around. My roommates were sleeping, including Mr. Light Sleeper. And I was afraid. I was afraid of standing up and then falling and waking everybody up and looking like a complete idiot. And then I heard the voice a third time, a little more stern, saying, get up and walk. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and I felt this warm energy flow through them. I placed my feet on the floor, I lifted myself up, I let go of the bed, and I didn't fall. And I took a step, and then another step. Suddenly, Mr. Light Sleeper wakes up. He says, what the? He's walking. Guys, wake up, he's walking. The nurse happened to be walking by the room. She comes in, Dean Hiatt, what are you doing out of bed? Then she stopped. She sees me standing in the middle of the room. She, glory, hallelujah. Ran out to go get the other nurses. I could hear her yelling, it's another miracle! It's another miracle! They called the doctor again. She came in the next morning. You're just full of surprises, Mr. Hiatt. Your God is good to you. I will return and we will talk about rehab. Being the miracle boy for a while had its benefits. Extra care from the nursing staff. An extra dark chocolate Ensure with my meal, even after I gained all the weight I was supposed to. The meals were pretty rotten, so all it took was oxtails. God save me for that. Okay, let me go get you something else. Thank you. Within a week, I was pushing myself to walk down the hall and back. And each time I headed further into the hospital, I began to go down to rehab every day to work out. I pushed myself as far as I could. And anyone who knows me, I don't like working out. But I did. I worked out until the rehab doctor would say stop. I wanted out. And during this time, I went through every drug regimen that was available. I kept becoming immune to the regimens, and they would have to change me to another. And it got to a point at one point where we were all concerned that they were going to run out of regimens. They finally found one that stuck. And I've been on the same regimen now for 5+, the latest new regimen for 5+ years. A lot more happened, but by the end of December, 5 months after the day I entered the hospital to die, I was back to my normal weight. I was walking, I was lifting weights, I was breathing normally, and I was actually in the best shape I had been in years. I had begun taking walks around the hospital grounds, then into the main street area of the island, and then I began walking around the island once a day. I think it was 3 miles or something. And then the doctor finally came in and said it was time to discuss leaving. I was assigned a city caseworker who connected me with a city-sponsored AIDS support group. My caseworker began the process of setting up disability and searching for an apartment and helping to furnish it. And this agency was crucial to rebuilding my life. I'm forever grateful to these guys. These agencies, I cannot tell you how important it is to support them, because they are everything to someone who's just lost everything and has to start over. During this whole time, I was still dealing with the other issue. I was faced with an old battle. I realized I still had homosexual feelings. And I was very confused. I told God, I said, you give me a second chance, you miraculously heal me and you bring me back to life, you take away my addictions, but you leave this one problem? I mean, this is the issue that led me to this point. And I was walking along the river one day and I was angry, and I got to the northernmost point of the island, facing the river, and I started screaming, why did you bring me back and heal me, but not take away these feelings? Is this the thorn in my side that I have to bear for the rest of my life? Is this why? Is this my punishment? And I said, I can't go through this again. I do not have the strength to go through everything I went through, and I'm going to end up in the same place I was. And then I heard that voice. And to me, again, it was so loud I could surprise Manhattan didn't hear it. And he said, my son, you are who I created you to be. And I stood there probably for a couple of hours, just looking out at the water. And for the first time in my life, I felt that peace I felt before rush through me, and it removed all doubt. I felt enveloped in a total and complete and perfect love for the person that I was. I was a child of God. I was His creation, and I didn't have to change anything. And from that point on, I've never looked back. I was released from the hospital that following June 2004. My parents came up, helped me move into my new apartment, and I began my second life. Because of my past history, I was required to attend SCA meetings, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous, and they included straight and gay people. Seems straight people have the same problems. After sharing my story with one of the leaders after a meeting one day, he asked me to share it at two or three other meetings, and the responses were amazing. There was complete acceptance, because not everyone in these SCA meetings had HIV, and not everyone was gay, and they were accepting, and it was unconditional. And the freedom to be able to finally share this was healing and freeing. And after one of those meetings, that was when I went into a bar I used to hang out with just to get a beer. I see the two guys talking to each other. One's got a Bible, looked at God and said, really? I just wanted a beer. I sat down. They invited me to join in. I declined. Just wanted a beer. And then one of them left. The other one started talking. And I had just met my soulmate. And we fell in love. We moved to the Poconos. We bought a house. We formed a family. Us, 4 dogs, 2 cats. And began a beautiful life together. Robbie had also grown up and was involved in the church. And we decided it was time to give it another shot. We prayed about it and we were led to MCCLV, where we spent many wonderful years and where God renewed our faith in Him and where we renewed our commitment to God and to ministry. And full circle from my original desire to be in theater to the point where I formed a theater company here for a few years and I was brought back to my first love. Later, we were eventually felt called to move on, and we were recently led to Sparta United Methodist Church, which is a reconciling ministries church working towards full inclusion in the Methodist Church denomination, the denomination I grew up in, again, full circle, where we have been welcomed with open arms. And we were immediately put on a committee, because Methodists love committees. And they asked us to be a part of the Social Justice Committee. And Saturday we attend our first training seminar to work with the reconciling teams. Health-wise, my HIV viral count has been completely undetectable for over 2 years. Since I left the hospital 11 years ago, I have not had one HIV or AIDS-related illness or major reaction to any drug regimen, which can often damage your major organs. And at my last checkup, my doctor was ecstatic, practically dancing, saying that for the first time, he said, everything is perfect. He said, you're undetectable. Your cholesterol is perfect, considering my diet. That's the big miracle. I lied to him a little bit, and I confess it and repent right now. Blood pressure, perfect. All organs functioning at full capacity. My lungs have stayed at 80% working capacity and had no problems. I walk in the healing power of God and in the love of God. And I am content with who I am in Christ because I am who God created me to be. And I am confident in that. I walk in it. I accept it, I embrace it, and I live it. And there is no doubt in my mind anymore. The virus is still out there. People continue to become infected. Some people are once again becoming reckless with safe sex. Some people still die from AIDS-related illnesses. People are still shunned by friends and family and many churches. There's still a shortage of funding for research and support groups. There's still a shortage of governmental funding to help with medications and treatments and medical expenses. And now there are politicians being appointed to cabinet positions who are anti-LGBT and who are threatening AIDS funding for research and treatment, as well as our community in general. So our work is far from over. Last week, our pastor preached on the theme of this Advent season, hope. I have chosen to walk in hope. Hope for a better tomorrow, hope for improved drug regimens, hope for a cure, hope for more funding, hope for continued destigmatization of the disease and those who live with it, hope for unconditional love and acceptance from the church at large and society. And I'm not naive, we're not there yet. Sometimes it feels like we're not even close. And lately, it feels more like we're being forcibly pushed backwards. But it should never, ever stop us. It should be our goal to stand together in hope, in love, supporting each other, supporting those still fighting and living with this disease, fighting for our rights, making our voices heard. I live in the hope that we continue to survive together.